Hey, this is Nick from Remedy667.com, the best place on the internet for spooky typefaces and horror fonts. Um, Today, we're just going to play with making a poster because we need to make one for our upcoming typeface of The Creature's Revenge, which is going to be coming out on October 13th, 2025. Right in the middle of 31 days of horror fonts. But we can talk about that later. All right. Let's take it over to our Photoshop document here and give ourselves a little bit of room. I'm going to hit Command J to duplicate my layer. I'm actually going to rename this layer because I tend to do this a lot, so I end up with a lot of layer ones that are my smart objects, and I'll have one open and then I'll make a new file and open it, and it'll open a blank one. It'll erase everything in my other one. So that can be a pain in the butt, and that's why you got to save your work. But today we're just going to work on Untitled number 4. All that being said. And the Haunted Mind is going to be the name of our layer. So we'll double click it. I grabbed some images from Pixabay earlier today. I got a skull. And I got a similar skull that just had a cool painterly look to it. I don't know. I got this picture of this lady that I could put a knife in her hand, maybe remove that arm or that arm. But the idea is to run the skull over her, where her face is. And a graveyard for the background. So that's what happens in the Haunted Mind. So let's get started. I'll throw all these pictures in the comments. I'm going to group those, Command J, and duplicate them because I just like to kind of keep the originals kind of clean in there. So the first thing I'm going to do, which seems a little weird, only because I'm probably going to make her a little larger. But the first thing I want to do is overlay this skull. And that's just about getting it, right with kind of the angle of her head. And it looks like some of that will actually get kind of carved out. All right. So, and we're going to make this bigger. So, I like to have both of her shoulders kind of in this. Right here, I'm going to run the copy of the Haunted Mind. Add a face. I thought I grabbed a knife. No, I thought I had a knife image. I guess I just didn't download it. And it's not even a very good knife. That looks like a vector knife. Hold on a second. Let me find a good knife. All right. We got a good knife now. I can even prove it. This is the image that we got for the knife. I am going to go through and just kind of zoom in. I'm going to start off with the select subject because I just start off there a lot these days. It actually isn't that great, which you can tell by looking at it. So, and then I'm just going to go in and clean it up, my selection. I feel like that automatic selection tool probably useful for a lot of things. It actually is useful because I still use it all the time. But it selects about as good as the magnetic selection tool if you're not really paying the closest of attention to your when you're using the magnetic selection tool. So select through this. By the way, I am a fan of this paintbrush selection tool, even though it's kind of similar to the mask tool that's been around forever. I just like that it kind of kicks me right into it instead of the mask tool, which I'd always have to remember to go in and grab for some reason. That might have just been the way I had Photoshop set up, but that works. Now this is actually more of a paring knife. Holy crap, excuse me. We're going to use it to size up her hand. And it's going to end up right around there and tucked in a little bit. Maybe even angled a little bit. And let's look at her hand. We're going to this time use the magnetic selection tool, because we're only using this to build a clipping mask. I'm going to take whatever that is out of her hands. We're going to Photoshop her ring off. This is annoying. All right, so the way I'm going to do this, because I already have a clipping mask on here, I'm going to throw it in a folder. And now that clipping mask for that folder is going to hide her hand a little bit. So notice how the cloth is actually different than the outline of the knife. So just going to clean that up a little bit right there. So now it looks like she's actually got it in her hand, sort of, a little bit. Let's go ahead and Photoshop this ring using the stamp tool, I think. Yeah, clone stamp is what it's called. And the way this tool works, if you're not familiar, is you can say that you want it to work with current and below, or just current or all layers. I'm going to do current and below. We're getting rid of the ring, so you're going to hold Option down, which gives you this target. Click part of the skin you want to sample, and it's going to actually see where that plus sign is. That's where it's actually pulling the image from. And it's good to actually kind of bounce around when you're doing this. It makes it a little more natural looking. I know that you can just, you know, AI disappear this nowadays, but it's actually, I think, good to kind of know how the process works. And sometimes AI doesn't really do that great of a job, and you need to clean it up anyway. And this isn't really going to be the best job, because it's not. So that, and then I want to remove this thing here, which I'm not even really sure exactly what it is. But to do that, I'm going to bring her nail down. See how it got a little dirty there. and clean that up. See, this is very repetitive in here. You can clean it a little bit. I mean, it's not too important. That's very slow. Her finger's a little weird where we erased some of that. That looks a little better. So we got the skull, the knife, the face. Let's actually we don't have to do that yet. We can let's save this and see what it looks like in our regular document once we add effects, because I want to know if I actually want to cut her face out a little bit or if I want to cut the skull out a little bit. I'm not really totally sure yet. And it's going to depend on kind of how this part looks. So I'm going to duplicate this, but I'm going to duplicate it by dragging it there. I know. Sometimes, and I'm not exactly sure what the recipe is, but sometimes you hit Command-J, it doesn't keep it as a... It's probably once you have a bunch of filters applied, but it doesn't keep it as a smart object. So let's get into the filter gallery. Which is looking pretty cool, but is also in reverse or inverted. So turn that off, get back into the filter gallery, and now it's black and white. So I think I want to keep the skull, but first what I want to do is kind of mess with these a little bit. I got a lot of... I don't like these little super rough. See, like in the top of the skull. Whoops. All these little bits. So I want to smooth it up a bit. But I think either wanted it 2 or 3. Not fully sure which is going to be the best bet yet. I think I might keep it at 2 because I like it being kind of... All right. So that's pretty cool. Makes me also think about the graveyard now. I wanted to run text on the bottom, but it might make more sense to run text on the top. Let's jump back into this and see kind of what we're working with over here. I'm going to use select subject on the girl layer here. It's going to outline her hair really, didn't really do that bad. Usually does a really not so nice job. I guess that would have been the way, but yeah, okay. Sorry, I was just checking to see what was going to be the best way to deal with the graveyard scene, which I don't think you're even going to recognize as a graveyard once it's in there. I want the skull to be the outline over her face, so I'm going to duplicate. I'm not duplicating anything. Putting a new layer up over this. I'm going to just kind of bring in darkness underneath here. And I need to soften that brush. Super duper. Still gonna keep her neck. And that did a really good number there. Okay, so select this. Command Shift I. I'm going to delete this side. Why with the hard brushes? I know. I actually use the hard brushes a lot. And all right. And I may have to bring the graveyard up just to make that knife stick out a little bit. Do something with this chin. So I'm going to run her neck up. Hold on. I think I'm going to make the skull just this half of her face. I'm going to move the graveyard up. Like there, so that the knife doesn't conflict with any of the gravestones. And I'm actually going to move her up, as weird as that sounds. Oh, maybe not, because if I want to run some text across the top, it's going to need some breathing room. All right, so let's do that with the skull. And we are actually going to pull the skull out a little bit more. Even though we had it pretty well matched with her chin before, I actually want it to be right up with the skin this time, because it's going to match with her neck, and we're trying to match it a little differently than what we were trying to do before. So, and the darkness layer, I think I can go a little bit more with that, like I just did. And now it doesn't necessarily match with her mouth. I'm not sure if that's going to matter or not. It probably will. But yeah, that totally doesn't match very well. All right, so let's do this. Let's bring the mouth back up and tuck that back in a little bit, or maybe... All right. So, what? All right. We're going to run this over just to go up into the skull, so that the neck is going to have a better appearance and feel more natural. Which is also going to mean we got to move her chin up just a tiny bit. This is a terrible, terrible job. That's why I did it on a new layer. Let's try this again. So it smooths out a little bit here. So if you didn't catch that, the way that we brought that in was I just kind of went over the highlight and just ran it right along there. right, let's see how that looks in black and white. All right, we're going to brighten up the knife. So we grabbed just the knife, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a new layer up top of curves. And I'm just going to brighten that way up. And then that's going to make it stand out a lot in our black and white version. Maybe a little too much, but that's right. We can go back from there. The skull looks good. I love the half skull-faced people. And the neck does look a little elongated, but I think it's all right. Maybe we'll make a cut there or something, or I don't know. So I'm going to slim that down a little bit. We made some text earlier for the Haunted Mind that says the Haunted Mind. I'm not going to go through and show the typesetting or any of that, but I will definitely drag the text in as a smart object. So this is how I had stacked my type. And now that I'm seeing it with the words on there, I think I need to make her a little smaller, perhaps. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to duplicate that again, because I thought I was happy with it. And grab all that is her. All right. And we're going to shrink it down just a little bit. So her hand coming with the knife is going to go right into the. And let's rearrange this graveyard picture. And I can probably make it smaller too to make it feel more graveyardish. And with this type, I'm going to make a new layer. And I want to put an effect on it that's going to be outer glow. I think that looks great. Whatever the hell just popped up for settings, you can take a screenshot of that if you care. And then I'm going to run dark from the bottom, I think. So I'm going to be right above the graveyard first. Command X. I'm going to hit B. I'm going to want a really big brush, like 3200. Actually, probably, yes. And we're just going to run that and then go above the girl, but layer mask it and shrink it down a little bit. And there we go. Save that. See how it looks. You know what? Maybe instead of going to black, I think we might want to go to white. Let's see. Hold on. I got... Sorry, I'm messing around in another document right now that you can't see. Ha ha ha. Smart object. Part of me thinks that this should be all like red. And that's my movie style text. So, and that's this. So this needs to move up a little bit. And I said I wanted to do white. So first what I want to do is then on the front, and then we're going to do the same way we did with the graveyard earlier. We're going to put one over the layer that went dark. Oops, and now you notice that that corner of her got a little weird. So where did we hide that layer? Right there. And we're going to bring a border into this. And it's going to work like so. Ready? On the top of here, I want black and a layer of white. And we're going to go in a little bit to see kind of exactly where we want that layer. White above. I'm going to group these, and I want it to be a multiply over top of this black layer with a mask. I want it to be white. And I want the graveyard to be masked out by this frame. And I want her to extend over it. So, find the layer with the head. We put her in a folder. And that's not really a whole lot, but, you know. It'll pop out a little bit. And you know what I need to fix is that skull. That's where that's... Yep. All right. So I'm going into my skull mask just to clear some of these lines off. And this is a pretty cheesy looking thing, but with the applied effects, it actually ends up looking pretty neat. So, red was what we were saying for the color. That's originally what I was thinking the black ink color would be, but I think it still might be. I think some of it I am going to leave black. So black, red, and duplicate that. I'm going to have another red that's multiply. Because these are fully saturated reds, you can't... They're not like blending, so let's give them a different shade of red. Now they get an interesting blend between them. So this would be red on I don't know, red paper or something, probably. Might look like this. Probably not. I wish I could see more of her hand. We lost a lot of detail in adding the text, so I think I'm gonna pause it real quick and play around with reformatting the text. So I will be right back. Okay, I got it rearranged a little bit. Not sure if it's a whole lot better, but whoops. But we're gonna get more detail in the hand, or at least more visibility. And I also found, while I was looking around, a spider web. Because we got a big old gap of weird negative space here. Multiply. Don't really want all the tree branchy things. Just the cobwebs. Whoops. And I'm not going to do the crazy effect that I did last time. I'm just going to go in with my brush and do it that way. And let's see what this looks like. Are the cobwebs dumb? Are they cool? I don't know. They're probably going to be dumb. Yeah. Maybe I'll put them up here. I don't know. May also add some lightness around her top of her head there. But let's look at these again. So this, actually, in the black, the cobweb does not look as dumb. So let's see. So this is where my very hard brush comes in handy, because that is exactly what I want for this type of work. Should the hair also have the color taken away? Probably. And we'll clean up the knife. And maybe actually add some sketchiness to the knife at some point. So I want this now to be a perfectly squared off angle. Same here. Excellent. All right, so how am I going to break apart the Haunted Mind, the left side of it over here? Part of me thinks it should be red. It should even out with that. And then this one should also come under fire right there. So the web should move down a little bit and just be in the red. So I think what I'll do is I'll actually take the spider web, move it down to right there, hit save. This is gonna move. All right, probably should have made it a little bigger. What I'm gonna do is this. Select sample all layers. I want the black. Pull it all away. There was probably a way quicker way to do this, but in my mind, this made the most sense for what I was trying to do. The web is selected. All right. And then I'm going to just make this white. Not attached. Once you're inside, you'll never just survive. You'll never survive the Haunted Mind. Smart object. I want that to be there, and I want that to be white. And I like that it runs into the border a little bit and into the face a little bit. Maybe not. Maybe that looks a little too much. So let's do this. Yeah. Now this looks like some early 2000s punk rock album cover. I don't know. I don't like that part. It's too big. There should be some copy up there, but I think for now, just the Haunted Mind on its own is pretty fun. I'm going to save this to get rid of that dark web. Send it back to the dark web. Sorry. This was driving me crazy. Whoa. I feel like the spider's web would actually be like in a different font if this were a real. But so I did some stuff to it and deleted it. And then moved it over to the side. And I feel like that makes it look really bad. I think we're just gonna leave it how it is like that. Maybe we'll put a little skull down there and that'll be that. We got that cool original image in here. That one. Yep. I'm just going to bring it all the way up to the top. Look at how sloppy we get with our files. And so the reason why we did that is because there's going to be red there. I wanted to show up kind of black. Curves. What in the... Save that. Let's see how this actually looks. And there we go. I'm like, I don't know why this went away. It's driving me nuts. All right. So I want it to run a little bit over like that. And there we go. That's a pretty decent-ish poster idea. So this is the one that we keep hiding. Let's see about just taking it back a little bit. 68%. And this is actually going to be the web and the cemetery. And also going to be the girl figure as well. But we do want it to go want that red to extend in the grave stones. And there. And there we go. That will be our finished-ish piece for title cards. Yay! The Haunted Mind. That took way longer than it probably should have, but that's totally fine because that's the way it works sometimes. Have a good week. I will see you soon. Don't forget to stop by remedy667.com and vote for your favorite fonts on 31 Days of Horror Fonts. Fonts with the most votes get made into new fonts. That's where this one came from, and that's where a lot of them come from. So, yeah, check it out. We'll see you soon.